Alright, hello. So we're going to continue on with the Journey to Heaven by St. Tikhon of Zadonsk. Counsels of the Particular Duties of Every Christian by Bishop of Voronezh and Elitz. Excuse me, I'm still fighting this cold. Alright. Once again, I'm going to paraphrase and summarize this in my own words quickly as I read it. It seems to be it goes faster that way, so I'm just going to do it that way. And because I've got a million books, and I would really like to be able to read a bunch of them and not just a few. Excuse me. I don't really want to. My father had a master's degree in theology, and he spent a lot of time sharing Orthodox Christianity. Before that, he was a Methodist preacher. So before that, he was spreading Protestant Christianity. Hey, Bessie, no. And so, Bessie. So, what was I going to say? Because of that, he would. We grew up in the Bible Belt, Oklahoma, Illinois area. Everything in between, and excuse me, and a lot of people like to debate. Back then, when I was a kid, in the 1970s and 80s, there were different times, and people were not so easily offended as they are today. And so there wasn't such an issue of, well, there was still pride and people still get offended, but it was much more accepted to argue issues on the point of fact in a legal way, and not be so sensitive and touchy-feely about it as today. But there were situations where it kind of got to be an issue, and people would get extremely offended, and they wouldn't talk to my father anymore about these things, and some of them were family members. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Bessie, no. There's people outside, and she's not going to stop growling. Sorry. So what was I saying? So, yeah, church issues. I don't like to get hung up in that stuff. I'm aware of it. I'm educated on it. My father and I had long discussions growing up. And sometimes I debated him because I was a prodigal son, and I challenged him on things. But he was always right in the end on the issues when I would go back and research it on my own. So I quit doing that. And that was one of the reasons why a lot of people get really frustrated with him. Is he was very good at asking leading questions, and he was very good at helping a person. He wasn't doing it to be malicious, but people would get very irritated. He was very good at, he knew his history, and he knew theology, and he was very good at getting people to understand that their way of thinking that was not in line with what was always taught was not in line with what was always taught, and he would, and that they needed to learn more. And they weren't as knowledgeable as they thought they were, and it wasn't to be malicious or mean. It was his way of trying to be gentle to get people to come to the fullness of the truth, to understand and learn more about Christianity and history. So my brother and I inherited a huge library. Our house at home was floor-to-ceiling books, bookshelves he built by himself on multiple walls in our home, and he gave most of them away, but a big chunk of them my brother and I still have, and we donated a bunch to the church. And so I'm going to be reading from a lot of those books, and this is one of them. So we're on section 4, chapter 5, duties of masters and servants. So, in the fifth commandment, God tells children to honor their parents and parents to take care of their children. And this goes along with masters and servants as well. Therefore, the Holy Apostle Paul exhorts subordinates to submit to their authorities and calls them servants of God. Quote, for he is the minister of God, Romans 13:4, end quote. And so when he teaches children should obey his parents and that fathers should not irritate or annoy their children, exasperate them with too much, he expresses the same thing for masters and servants. Servants have to submit to their bosses and do the will of God from their heart, Ephesians 6:5. And masters have to remember that they also have God in heaven and have to be equally good to their subordinates. Quote, the counsel of the Word of God is contained in the following duties of masters. 1, they have to hold servants to be obedient to God and His law and maintain the fear of God and abstain from iniquitous deeds, sinful things, and that God should be glorified and pleased with them and their servants. 2, they should they should not divert them from the services, the holy divine services and prayers on Sundays and feast days by giving them extra work to do, but they should also themselves not neglect they should not miss church services. And they should go and pray that God be merciful to them and their servants. 3, their commands should be in line with the teachings of God, and they should serve their servants like Jesus did, and not violate the commandments of God. Jesus served the apostles and demonstrated extreme humility for all of us to follow. 4, masters are supposed to provide for their servants everything they need for life and health. 5, masters are supposed to lead their servants with an appropriate attention to their families, their homes, and farm work. Not overwhelm them to the point that they are unable to take care of those things for themselves and their families. 6, the masters are also to make sure that their servants are being faithful and honoring their marriage and taking care of their marriage appropriately according to God's will. 7, masters are to avoid being cruel and follow the teachings of Apostle Paul and temper their strictness with paternal love towards their servants. 8, masters are to accept requests kindly and with fatherly love, and also to be prepared to stand before God and give account, who judges all, and hope to see their servants glorified along with them. That should be their goal. Okay, now on the duty of servants to their masters. Quote, the law of God subjects servants to obedience to their masters. The Holy Apostle Paul gives sufficient instructions for them. Servants, be obedient to them that are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling, in singleness of your heart, and as unto Christ, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, with good will, doing services to the Lord and not to men. Ephesians 6:5-7. End quote. So These days we don't have masters and servants. Well, we do illegally. We have illegal slavery still goes on today, but the United States capitalism is set up as free agent slavery, so you can choose who your master is, what your job is, how much you get paid, where you live. You have some control over these things in today's society. But the same basic principles apply. Okay? So, Paul goes on to, or Saint Tikhon goes on to explain. St. Paul is talking to the servants. 1, honor your masters and love them as you would your own father. 2, serve them with fear and trembling. Don't take your position for granted. Not fear of punishment, but fear of disappointing them. Not doing what they want you to do. And trembling, because you don't want to screw up the orders. 3, should do it with a simple heart, sincerity of heart. Don't challenge their why they want you to do what they want you to do. Just serve them. 4, don't act as man pleasers, or brown nosers, as we call it today. Don't try to be fake and make your boss thinks you're perfect, or show off your good works in front of them. Whatsoever good thing any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord. Ephesians 6:8. So that's the mentality you should have. Excuse me, towards your supervisor, your boss, your master. 5, be zealous in your love and all your work, serving your boss or master, and God will bless you and your deeds, and He will turn the master's heart towards being kind to you, loving towards you. If anything too harsh should come up and you have to get some relief because it's too much, you need to be able to address that. You should address that. Just don't be obstinate and rebellious or obnoxious in the process. And 7, pray for your masters at home and at church, and therefore show God your love for them and your zeal for them. And so that is what St. Tikhon has to say about the duties of masters and servants towards each other and to God. And that's the end of that chapter 5. Next is chapter 6, duties of the rich and the poor. But I'm going to stop there. So, pray for me, a sinner. God bless. Over and out.